There was a boy named Ethan. On a freezing winter night in Ohio, he stood outside a diner, shivering in a jacket so thin it barely kept the wind away. Inside, families laughed over warm meals, their faces glowing under the golden lights. But Ethan pressed his hands deeper into his pockets, hiding the quarters he had collected from sweeping sidewalks and picking up trash. Not enough for a meal. Not enough for warmth. Just enough to remind him how far behind life had left him. He was only 16, but he already carried the weight of someone twice his age. His father had walked out years ago. His mother worked double shifts at a nursing home, yet still couldn't cover the bills. Their house creaked with broken windows patched by cardboard, their fridge often empty, their dreams constantly swallowed by the kind of poverty that doesn't just steal food, it steals hope. And yet, deep inside that hungry, shivering boy, something burned, something he couldn't explain. It was the stubborn belief that one day his name would mean something. One day people would remember not where he started, but how far he went. Ethan's classmates mocked him for wearing the same faded jeans every day. Teachers, though sympathetic, didn't expect much from the boy who always sat quietly in the back, head down, scribbling in a tattered notebook. But Ethan wasn't just scribbling, he was planning. While others laughed at memes and played games, Ethan filled page after page with dreams, drawings of businesses he wanted to start, quotes that inspired him, and sketches of inventions he imagined could change the world. He had no idea how, but he knew he had to escape the cycle that crushed everyone around him. The nights were the hardest. When his mother finally came home, exhausted and barely able to stand, Ethan would tuck her into bed, then sit alone in the dark living room. He would stare at the silence and whisper promises to himself. I will not live like this forever. I will fight. I will rise. But wanting something is one thing. Achieving it is another. At 17, Ethan took his first real job, stacking shelves at a grocery store. The pay was barely enough to cover bus fare and a few groceries, but he refused to quit. Each day, he forced himself to learn. He watched how managers ran the store, how they kept track of products, how they motivated or failed to motivate their teams. At night, he read free business articles on an old library computer, sometimes staying until closing time just to soak in knowledge. But even with all his efforts, life kept knocking him down. His mother's health began to fail. Medical bills stacked high. One morning, as Ethan headed to school, an eviction notice fluttered on their front door. They had 30 days to leave. That night, Ethan sat with his mother in the dim kitchen. Her hands trembled as she tried to reassure him. Maybe this is just life, Ethan. Maybe some people are meant to struggle. But Ethan shook his head, tears stinging his eyes. No, Mom, I swear to you, one day, I'll give you a life where you'll never have to work again. His words were raw, desperate, but filled with a conviction that even his mother, tired and broken, couldn't ignore. Ethan dropped out of school the next year, not because he wanted to, but because he had no choice. Someone had to keep food on the table. He worked 2 jobs, sometimes 3, cleaning warehouses at night and unloading trucks in the mornings. He barely slept. His hands blistered, his back ached. But every paycheck he saved a little. Not much, but enough to believe progress was possible. Yet deep down, Ethan knew this couldn't be his forever. He had to build something bigger. One evening, while cleaning an office building, Ethan overheard 2 men discussing online businesses. They spoke about selling products, about websites, about profit margins. It was a world Ethan barely understood, but it lit a fire inside him. That night, after his shift, he borrowed an old, dusty laptop from a neighbor and started researching. For months, every free minute was spent learning marketing, online sales, design. He failed more times than he could count. His first attempts At selling products online brought in nothing but frustration. Packages got lost, orders never arrived, customers demanded refunds. More than once, he almost gave up, but every failure became fuel. Every mistake, a lesson. Ethan was relentless. He refused to quit. Slowly, piece by piece, he began to understand the game. His first breakthrough came when he discovered a product no one else in his small town had seen before. A simple fitness accessory. He scraped together what little savings he had, invested it, and created a small online store. To promote it, he filmed a low-quality video on his phone, demonstrating the product in his backyard. He uploaded it, barely expecting results. But within days, the orders started trickling in, then dozens, then hundreds. Ethan worked around the clock, shipping products, answering customer questions, fixing problems. His tiny room turned into a mini warehouse, boxes stacked from floor to ceiling. He barely slept, but for the first time in his life, exhaustion felt sweet. It felt like progress. Within a year, his small hustle had grown into a full business. His income wasn't just enough to cover rent and food. It was enough to move his mother into a safe, comfortable home. The day he handed her the keys, tears rolled down her cheeks. She whispered, "You kept your promise." But Ethan didn't stop. He reinvested every dollar, expanded his business, learned from bigger players, and refused to get comfortable. By the time he turned 25, that poor boy who once stood hungry outside a diner was the owner of a multi-million-dollar company. Reporters began writing about his journey. Interviews called him the boy who never gave up. But Ethan never cared about fame. He cared about the nights when he had nothing, about the hunger that shaped him, about the promises he made in the dark. One evening, after a long day of meetings, Ethan returned to that same diner where he once stood as a broke, shivering teenager. This time, he walked in wearing a tailored suit, greeted by the warm smell of fresh coffee and laughter. He bought a meal for every stranger sitting inside, then quietly slipped into a booth by the window. Staring at the glass, he saw his reflection, not just the man he had become, but the boy who once had nothing but fire in his heart. And for the first time, he allowed himself to smile, not out of pride, but out of gratitude. The world will always remember Ethan as the boy who rose from nothing. But in his heart, he was still that kid, whispering promises under a broken roof, clinging to the belief that one day, he would make it. And he did. He proved that no matter how heavy the struggle, no matter how cold the nights, if you refuse to break, if you refuse to quit, then nothing, absolutely nothing, can stop you from rising.